AVRant and SVS have teamed up to bring you an unbelievable opportunity. Have you been dreaming of dual subwoofers? Perhaps you'd like to upgrade your entire 5.1 speaker package. Don't have the cash? AVRant and SVS have your back. Go to www.avrant.com right now for your chance to win your choice of dual PB1000 subwoofers or a Prime 5.1 satellite speaker package. Contest ends September 30th. Don't wait. Open to the residents of the United States and Canada. We are your home theater and AV questions answered. This is AVRant. Want your home theater or AV question answered by Tom and Rob? Send it to question@avrant.com. Welcome to AVRant. I'm Tom Andry, and I'm here with
Rob H.
All right, Gabe. Gabe came across some YouTube videos from the Netherlands with self-proclaimed audio evangelist Hanz Beekhuyzen. Is Beekhuyzen?
He says Beekhuyzen. So.
It's two E's. All right,
I know. But
all right. Anyways,
he says his own name. I assume he knows how to pronounce his own name. So.
I don't know, dude. He's from the Netherlands. I don't actually know where that is. I mean, I know it's over there. Anyways, I actually know where it is. Yeah, I don't really. It discusses high-res audio, all right, and MQA. So this is what this guy, now MQA, if you don't remember, is Meridian Quality Audio or something like
Master
that.
Quality Authenticated. It is Meridian that makes it, right. But it's Master Quality Authenticated.
Anyway, the idea is that they make sure that it has all the right bits.
MQA, they're starting with a quote-unquote high-res master, something like 192 kilohertz, 24-bit, or something along those lines. And then they are shrinking it down to a CD-sized file, so a 16-bit 44.1 kilohertz file. That's what they're shrinking it down to, but they add on extra metadata where if you have an MQA decoder, it will look at that metadata and supposedly give you back all of the quality that was supposedly lost by shrinking it from 192.24 down to 44.116. That's the idea behind it, is that it'll play on a regular CD player.
I like that.
It is a CD-sized file, but if you have the MQA decoder, then the extra metadata will supposedly give you back the quality that was lost. So that's the idea behind MQA.
All right. Gabe is familiar with our opinions on these topics, which he's about to hear again, but he enjoys this man's take on the subject because he does not seem to be self-serving or delusional. The best ones aren't. He discusses it from the point of view of computational errors and how simply beginning with more bits allows for more computation or filters without the risk of losing any of the audible information. Since digital signal processing of the signal is now the norm, e.g. room correction, does this make sense? Well, Gabe, I didn't watch the videos, and I swear I had every intention of doing that, and then somehow I didn't, so I apologize.
They weren't super short. They're like 20 minutes apiece.
Yeah, I wouldn't have watched them anyways. So, generally speaking, everything that the type of people that say these things say makes sense on the face of it. You know, face validity is very high, meaning you think about it, you go, yeah, that makes sense. Having more bits must be better, right? Having more, it must be, right? But for me, this is like having more tires on a car. You know, you could have like 20 of them. It doesn't make the car go any faster. It in no way does it. It's even better if you think of it as having 20 tires on the car, but you're still only using the 4. You know, that touch the ground. All the rest of them are just a little bit above the ground and aren't really used in any way, shape, or form. That, to me, is sort of the analogy here. Yes, there's extra bits. Yes, there's all this other stuff. You can't hear it. And if you can hear it, if this metadata does make an audible, like a real serious audible difference, then you aren't hearing, then something was done at some point in this to change the files, because whatever they can add on top of 16 bit 44 kilohertz 44.1, it's not, it shouldn't be audible in any way, shape, or form. All that depth that they're supposedly adding back in here, there's no way that it should be audible. If it is audible, it must mean that there's a real change, and to me that's essentially distortion.
So to me, the really interesting part of this is that, first of all, this fellow who's making the videos, he doesn't talk about somehow hearing above 20 kilohertz. In fact, he goes right into the whole age-related thing of you probably don't hear even up to 20 kilohertz if you're over childhood age. You know, you probably have some high-frequency hearing loss. So what he's saying is, this is more a computational thing. This is more about filters being applied because you can get some filter distortion. And there is the point made, which is that when you have 44.1 kilohertz sampling, it means the very highest frequency that you can sample is, 22.05 kilohertz. That's the very highest frequency you can sample. And it also means that if there is any frequency information higher than that, captured within that lower sampling rate, it will manifest itself as errors. That is just mathematically true based on Nyquist's theorem. So that means you have to have a very steep filter. If you want to capture 20 kilohertz, you have to have something that filters 96 dB of sound, because we're talking about 16-bit audio, which gives you a 96 dB decibel range. You have to have a filter so steep that you filter out 96 dB of sound from 20 to 22.05 kilohertz. That is a very, very steep filter. Now, what that basically means is everything he's talking about, I actually agree with in terms of recording the sound digitally initially.
Yes.
I also agree with it in terms of manipulating the sound, like editing it in a sound editing program or applying other digital processing to it after the fact. I actually do agree with that, which is exactly why programs will upsample when they're doing the computation. You know, they'll take an original file that might, let's say it's 48 kilohertz, 24-bit. Well, they will upsample it. They'll double or quadruple it to 96 kilohertz or 192 so that they can do the computation, do all the filtering, and then shrink it back down to the original. So the whole thing about the computational errors, I actually agree with. What I don't agree with is that the end result, the actual recording that you purchase somewhere, needs to retain the 192 kilohertz sampling rate or the 96 kilohertz or whatever. It doesn't need to, because you can do all the you can create exceedingly steep, very effective noise-free filters digitally. Right. So when we're talking about capturing something live to a digital recording, I absolutely agree. You can have a problem if you're trying to capture it at 44.1 kilohertz. And that's actually been shown time and again. And even, you know, over at ziff.org, where they've done a lot to debunk this high-res audio stuff, he's like, yeah, the recording side, it makes sense.
Yeah, well, we've said that numerous times on this podcast. Yeah. I mean, you just have to think about it from a logical standpoint. When you're capturing this, you want to have the biggest possible net. You want to have all the area, because you have to manipulate this. And that is why when we record this podcast, we don't record it at 96 kilohertz or whatever it is,
kilobits per second MP3.
Yeah. We record it in full res, uncompressed FLAC or FLAC.
Yeah.
And that way, when the audio gets sent to me, I can do whatever I want to it. I can normalize it. I can compress it. I can noise filter it. I can do all this stuff, and then after I do all that, then I output it into the MP3 that you guys download. And they're like, oh, the audio sounds pretty good. I'm like, yeah, it sounds pretty good. I think it's compressed down to like 96. I think it is 96 kilobits. It's really small.
Because it's just voice.
It's just voice.
Voices, so.
You know, a little bit of music at the beginning, a little bit of music
at the end. And we shouldn't have a massive dynamic range, so the number of bits shouldn't need to be that high.
That's right. And frankly, you know, we don't have a lot of noise and a lot of other stuff on here because we do all that stuff way before we compress it and put it out. And that's what has to happen in the recording end of music. When you're recording the music, you need to get the largest file you can, so that when you're doing all your manipulations, in the end, you still have enough dynamic range left. You still have enough space left, so that when you compress it, it doesn't just go to nothing.
Yeah, so one of Gabe's concerns in his email, he's like, what he wants is to make sure that things that are recorded today are archived in a way so that the audio files that are archived are really, really high quality. That's his primary concern. Yeah. So honestly, my take, Gabe, is I agree with this
Yes.
guy in terms of the recording. I agree with it in terms of the manipulation of it. What I don't agree with is that the final output file must retain that same, because it doesn't. The whole idea is you have all this high frequency information way above what humans can hear. You have all that available so that if there is any noise, you can dither it up there. You can push it up there and then filter it out. And now it's gone.
Yeah.
So honestly, the cleanest thing that you can have is a really well filtered file that is, high resolution, so high sampling frequency, high bit rate. You start with all that, but then you apply a nice filter to it. You've got whatever dynamic range you want to work with. You've pushed all the noise that was in there below the noise floor and way up into the super high frequencies. The end result file being CD quality, being 16-bit and 44.1 kilohertz, is no problem. Because if you've done all the mastering properly, that file can have pristine quality in terms of what the human ear can hear. So that's my final take.
And that's what it really comes down to. It's like, well, why not just have it bigger? Well, on a lot of levels, you're right. Why not? It's fine. It's fine to have it bigger. The question is, do we need to have it bigger? And the answer is, we can't hear it if it is. Once you get down past CD quality, when you're pretty close to CD quality, you're probably not going to hear the difference. But at some point, you will. But we know at CD quality, you cannot. It is not physically possible, no matter how golden your ears are, to hear the difference. And that's why that is the standard. So why don't we have a higher standard? Because we don't need a higher standard. We've got the standard that what we can hear. Just make sure that what you put out at that is in the best possible condition. Want your question answered? Send it to question@avrant.com. This is AVRant.
Now go out and listen to something.